everyone, and welcome to this episode of Chatting with the Lightkeeper. It's hard to believe this is actually the 16th one that I have done since started pecking away at doing these at the 1st of March. So it's kind of exciting to hit number 16. Um, Only means I'm a little behind doing once every 2 weeks, but the good news is this podcast is gonna kind of help get the numbers where they need to be since it hasn't been 2 weeks since I've recorded my last episode. But through chatting with a friend the other day, we were talking about wisdom and people who are wise beyond their years and all those fun sayings, and it kind of got me thinking, which has led to this podcast about DS wisdom. Wisdom comes primarily, I believe, from the mistakes that we've made. And everybody makes mistakes. And as I kind of look around at the DS world, especially online, you find, and it's true in person. If you go to events in person, it's not often you find D types, either online or in person, that are open, candid, and want to talk about their mistakes. You'll hear people say, "Oh, so and so over there, they're a wise dominant." But the thing is that that wisdom has come because that person has screwed things up royally in their past, and for whatever reason, and I don't know, not all dominants are this way, but many dominants just don't like to talk about their mistakes. So I'm going to share some of mine with you today here. So maybe perhaps listening to this before, you might have thought I was wise and wonderful, and you may come out of this thinking, oh my God, he's an asshat. So let's get kind of the risk of sharing the mistakes you've made along the way. Anyway, uh, I guess I'll start with probably mistakes. Hopefully that by sharing them, I'll benefit everybody listening, no matter what side of the slash you're on, and you can grow from my mistakes and hopefully not repeat them and make better mistakes than the ones that I've made. The first one, it's not really going to, I'm not going to call it a mistake. Technically, yes, but it was an incredible learning adventure for me. And that was many years ago in a galaxy far away. I sort of gave in to the societal pressures that are put upon a young 20-something guy out of college. And at that point, I was already involved in the lifestyle, and I put it all away to become, for lack of better words, a, you know, good corporate drone, a good boyfriend, and do all those things that are kind of expected of of a young guy at those ages. And what ended up happening is I wasn't able to just find happiness in a relationship. And so my trip to Vanilla led to meeting some amazing people, but just nothing was the right fit. And so I stepped back, looked at myself, and realized that the problem was not who I was dating. The problem was in me, and what was not seeking in a partner, and that was the lifestyle. So the going vanilla experience, and I think it's something that happens to many people who are in the lifestyle, is they come in and then they go vanilla, and then that experience teaches them, and they come back when they discover that the lifestyle is definitely a must-have for them in any partnership, and that was the case for me. So I learned my lesson, and since then, I have met some amazing vanilla people who have pursued me, and every time I've disregarded it because I know at the end of the day I will end up, whether it's 3 months, 6 months, a year, maybe longer, end up unhappy and be in a relationship where I'm unhappy, and that's going to lend itself to either me choosing a lifetime of unhappiness or hurting feelings and exiting the relationship. So I've learned that through my own experience that fortunately or unfortunately, I guess however you want to look at it, vanilla is not for me. Um, the other couple of mistakes that I want to touch on, both came, and I think it's a very human place, and I think everybody who's listening has probably been there, and if you haven't, you will be at some point in time. A place where you're really excited, you're ready for a partner, and you're a touch lonely. So you kind of put some things aside because you are ready, willing, and able for that partner. You've healed from that last relationship, and when it comes to the world of DS, um, you sort of when you're ready, you jump into a relationship, and that jumping is just because you're ready and this person's awesome, but you don't spend the time together to build the relationship. You just say, "Oh, you're awesome, I'm awesome, you're single, I'm single, we're both relationship ready." And hey, you know what? Amazingly, we're both in the lifestyle. And since the dating pool, let's be honest, in the lifestyle, it's smaller than what our vanilla friends are faced with. So you find somebody, and perhaps they're close by, as was the case for me. They weren't three time zones or four area codes away, even though area codes are kind of a finicky thing now with cell phones. Anyway, um, close by, they were awesome. They thought I was awesome. I was a D, they were an S. A couple of dates. Let's do it. Let's go. Let's get in a relationship. And then 6 months later, it's sort of like, oh my God, who is this person? And oh, I can't sort of stand being with them. I mean, they're great and all, but they're just not great for me. Thankfully, in my situation, we both felt the same way. So it was one of those breakups where both of us went away going, glad that's over. So that was a lesson learned. The other thing that I have done, and if you follow my blog or read some of my writings, you'll see I've talked about it there. Um, you fall into that habit of your relationship ready once again, perhaps a touch lonely, and you find somebody that has the same kinks as you, or a vast majority of the same kinks or fetishes that you share. And wow, this is great because that's kind of a rare find to find somebody that you know I don't know would have a if there was a kinky eHarmony, would have a 90% match rating or however they do it with their algorithms. But they seem to just match on the kink and fetish side just fantastically. And so you jump into the relationship with them because all the all the freaky fun stuff aligns. Once again, the trouble is that you haven't found the right mix to make it work as two people. You haven't invested the time, and once again, no matter how amazing and how things link up on the fetish side, if you don't click as people, you're gonna end up on unclicking and uncoupling, which is the case. So once again, you have to not only be aware of all the things in the lifestyle that you want and need, but you also still have to find that person that matches you as a person that also happens to be in the lifestyle. Kind of one of those things where dating in the lifestyle is a pain. Smaller dating pool, and there's so much more to match rather than just you know, matching people like our vanilla friends have, and think about all the horror stories they tell. And we had this whole nother layer of DNS to everything. So it gets a little challenging, but matching kinks, matching fetishes, however you want to say it, do it with your checklist and those tests online that say, oh, you're 90% this, 80% that. It's 100% worthless if you don't click as two individual people. So you can't there's no short way to do it without actually clicking as two people or more people if you're poly. So yeah, put the checklists away because it's not gonna work. The next lesson that I want to share with you, kind of call it my Forrest Gump Dr. Pepper lesson. But anyway, before I talk about Mr. Gump and the lesson that that having too many Dr. Peppers can teach you in the lifestyle, I'm going to take a short break and share a sponsorship message with you, and then we'll come right back to talk about Forrest Gump and how he taught me a lesson in the lifestyle. All right, welcome back. And before we had the little break, we were coming back to talk about my Forrest Gump lifestyle lesson. In this case, rather than as Forrest said, I gotta pee, rather than me needing to pee in the middle of play, um, my submissive had the sudden urge to go, and this was back when I was a young college lad, and one of the fashion accessories that she was really into were silk scarves, and we had used those. Well, I had used those to tie her to the bed, and of course, playtime was in full effect, and because I'll chalk this up to I was younger, but the lesson has stuck with me. I was in that age, I was a competitive sailor. I crewed on sailboats that raced. And so I know, still do know, um, all sorts of wonderful knots. Um, and in this case, I had tied her legs using knots that I would be able to easily undo, especially considering the material. However, when it came time to bind her wrist, I was thinking with the wrong head, more than likely, especially as a young 20 something. Um, and I was excited and wanted to get on to the next stage, which was me enjoying her and her enjoying me enjoying her. And I didn't use proper knots, I just tied. So as play went, it was wonderful, amazing, and use whatever wonderful word you want for it. However, when she interrupted to say, I have to pee and pee now because she didn't recognize the kind of lead up to needing to pee because she was enjoying everything and it was just, hey, gotta pee now. I was quickly able to undo her legs. But when it came time to undo her arms, those knots were not gonna budge. So I ended up having to cut two of her silk scarves off so she could dash to the restroom, take care of business. And thankfully, it was something that, you know, we had a hilarious laugh at while it was happening, which wasn't helping her potty situation, and after as well. But it was also a huge mistake, one um, that had it been something more serious, could have been serious, and it's a lesson that I've learned to pay attention to what you're doing rather than thinking ahead to the next step or short circuiting a step because you want to get from step two to step three because step three is where it's really going to get fun. You can't do that. So while it was a humorous thing that happened, it was a lesson that has stuck with me, and it's one that I feel is important to share. Um, no matter what side of the slash you're on, understand that you can't, everything has to be done properly, especially when you're prepping for lifestyle, fun, and games. Because when it's not done properly, you end up in a situation like that, which could have been worse if it was something worse other than a need to use the restroom. So that lesson has stuck with me. The other lesson that's gone right along with us, she didn't need to explain to me. I was already explaining to her as I was cutting them that, hey, tomorrow we're going to go to Macy's and I'm going to replace the scarves. You pick out what you want, whatever they are, I'll get them. Um, so, Dominus, if you do have something, especially the primal guys out there that, you see the posts online about I can't wait to see you tonight. I'm gonna rip your clothes off. And when you have those clothes ripping playtime moments, what you rip of your partners off and you damage, you need to plan on replacing like tomorrow, not next week, not next month. If you're going to rip it off and you're potentially going to damage it, plan on replacing it. Just a word to the wise. So there's the lesson of wanting to jump ahead in the play beforehand, which leads to issues. The next one is going to be what I call the relocation complication. And in this case, I don't necessarily feel it was a mistake because I couldn't be happier with where my life is now, and I am still friends with this amazing person as well, and they are incredibly happy with their life. So things happen for a reason, but there's a lesson that's in my relocation complication section. And as I've said earlier today, DS relationships are often harder to find and to start because there's less people to pick from in our wonderful dating pool, and there's even some, you know, ugliness that floats around in that pool. Probably a whole lot of pee too, but there are people in lifestyle that like it, so they like their pee thing. So we'll just leave it at that. Anyway, um, met this amazing person. We lived a few states apart. Um, did things the right way. We talked, we texted, we Skyped. We really made sure, we were liking each other before we actually met, and we both traveled, met each other, did all of that. But we never really had the conversation of who's gonna move. One of us has to move to be together. And in all fairness, looking at things, I knew then it would be me that would be the mover. She would have been the one to stay. I would have been the one to move to her neck of the woods. And when the time kind of came and it was time to make that move, I dragged my feet. And for whatever reason, I don't know why I did. I didn't just jump, go, and say, "Hey, let's do it." Um, and we hadn't talked about that. It just sort of was to the point where I needed to move, and I was tentative, unsure, and didn't. And so the relationship, did come to an end. Um, Rightfully so. It's just it's one of those things where looking back, and we've talked about it, in hindsight. Um, it's an odd place to be to hear a former partner when they're discussing their marriage and how wonderful it is, just sort of slip in there, it could have been you. And I'm not sure whether she said could have or should have, but I'm going to leave it at could have because it's easier for me to mentally process. But we're still friends. And like I said, everything happens for a reason. But if you are going to start dating somebody that lives, even if they're an hour away, 2 hours away, and you realize things are going to get serious, you have to have the relocation conversation. Are you going to move? Am I going to move? Are we both going to move and pick someplace different? And then, in today's world where there's a lot of blending of families, you have to have that conversation about how that's going to go. So just learn from my lesson. If you are dating somebody that is going to require one of you to move or both of you to move, um, have a conversation about it. Plan that as you plan your future. Figure it out. Have a plan so that when the time is right, you're ready to actually go through with it. Rather than be like, oh my God, things are right and I'm not ready. So learn from that mistake. Um, and finally, we're going to come to probably something that I'm always hesitant to talk about this because let's face it. In this case, I was an idiot. I could use a lot more colorful language than that, but I'm not sure. how colorful language gets podcast rated or possibly removed from sites. So I don't want to add too much color. So we'll just leave it at the fact that I was a complete idiot. But we always say that honesty is a pillar of DS. And sadly, I can't go back and say, well, I was just a 20 something just in college when this happened. No, I was a grown butted adult who was old enough to know better and yet stupid enough that I did it anyway. Um, my partner at the time said something that I perceived to be a lie. And rather than do what I feel a dominant who's leading the relationship should have done, and that is address that immediately with them, not in a manner of a a butthead, but two adults have a conversation and say, I think when you said X, was that really, I don't know, truthful? But no, I handled it by responding to her lie with one of my own. And of course, she was a very intelligent woman. And it's like, oh my God, he just lied to me. Screw him. I'm going to lie to him back. And so, uh, you know, I very maturely handled that by lying back to her. And so rather than building a relationship where we built trust, all we did over the time together is build dishonesty and spite. And holy cow, that was one epic relationship blow up failure at the very end. She's an amazing person. I'd imagine somebody that probably wouldn't have too many good things to say say to you about me, rightly so. Um, and yeah, it's as a dominant, 100% my fault because I allowed it. I encouraged it with my behavior, responding how I did, and yeah. So please just be honest with your partner, whether you're kinky or vanilla. Just be honest because if not, you will end up in a place that is, ew, not fun. Those type of breakups suck. Don't do it. Don't do it. Anyway, on a much happier note, one of my favorite, I don't know whether comedian is the right word, um, part author, part radio personality. So I guess I'll go with humorist. Tom Bodett. If you live in the United States, you know his voice because he is the voice of Motel 6. He'll leave the light on for you. That's Tom Bodett. Anyways, he has a saying, and it says the difference between school and life is in school you're taught a lesson and then given a test. In life, you're given a test that teaches you a lesson. So I think the lesson here is I would like people who are listening to take and learn from the tests that I have had as a dominant and the lessons that those tests have taught me, even the self-inflicted test. Um, and don't do them yourselves. Um, take the lessons of others and make better mistakes than I have because we're all human. We're all going to make mistakes. So, yeah, just endeavor to make um, better mistakes and make them better another day. So, just remember when you do hear somebody in the lifestyle that you do find wise and might have some wisdom, that's coming from a place of those lessons that life has taught because they've had tests and not all those tests were just random life happening tests but were self-inflicted mistakes that led to a life test. So thank you for giving me a listen as I've talked about some of the mistakes I've made. I hope that everyone listening can not duplicate them. And yeah, I also hope that a few of you don't judge me negatively for my past, but if you do, that's I guess you're entitled to do that, and I've earned it because of that. Anywho, with that, I'm gonna call it a day, and I look forward to any of your comments and feedback that you might have, and I look forward to chatting with you again soon. Thanks for giving me a listen.